And meanwhile, this fight continues with Fabiano starting with the white pieces. And once again, we see him employ the king's pawn opening. And this time, no Sicilian. But Magnus Carlsen, his opening of choice for the Armageddon. A more solid approach. Thankfully, we will not see a Berlin.
The Sicil was killed yesterday. Fabiano Caruana beat Magnus Carlsen. The white side of that Brasilian was Sicilian. So now we get an Italian game. And it's a quieter start. There could have been a fried liver for those of you who learned chess as kids, when everyone's playing the fried liver, going straight for that f7 pawn. Not here, not against Magnus Carlsen. There's a ton of theory there. And at the highest level, that theory often allows black to equalize.
Yeah, just looks like normal things happening on the board, and shout out to Air Things for showing us the air quality out there in Toronto. Looks like perfect conditions for the players. We see the chairs, we see the kind of esports arena we've built for them, and no complaints about the conditions. Great, great temperature. Magnus loves it, warm out there. 25 degrees in Toronto. I'm jealous sitting here in Norway where it's freezing outside. But in the meantime, early days, it is the Italian opening, and Fabiano very ambitiously brings his bishop out. So he's feeling good, he's feeling ambitious in this game, as evidenced this last move. It is risky. White's bishop could be misplaced if it gets kicked about, but it is provocative at the same time, asking black to push pawns forward.
And that's the kind of chess you need to play right now. And that last move by Magnus, it just signals that he wants to keep everything under control in this position, wants to keep it as solid, and basically asks Fabi to show his cards, to try to create something. Magnus not getting provoked to push the G pawn forward just yet. We see Fabi trying to get more space on the queen side, that A pawn can further march down the board to A5. A technique that got him good results in set 1.
It did indeed, and right now I think that Magnus has a bit of a passive position, but he's okay with that. If he keeps drawing the games, the good news for Fabiano in particular, that a 2-2 tie, there are no ties with Armageddon on the line. So for Fabiano, if he just draws the next 3 games, he still have a chance in Armageddon. But Magnus says, I don't want to risk losing. I don't want to play anything overly ambitious. Why should I? I won set 1. I have the inside track to the finals.
Yeah, historically, Magnus has such a monster score in Armageddon chess. Norway Chess, the event earlier this year, he won 7 in a row there, only losing 1 eventually. This tournament, he's only lost 1 Armageddon, Magnus, to Wesley So. And I think Fabiano, it's nice to have that safety net, but he needs to strike earlier. And these pawn pushes, it does show he's being ambitious. Magnus, unsure how to react. This is always frustrating when the opponent pushes their rook's pawn on either flank so far up the board. Do you block it? Do you let it continue advancing? We've seen that backfire on multiple occasions. That white pawn could well become a queen later on. It's so close to promotion later in the endgame, a real ace card up his sleeve. And Magnus pausing for thought. Does he want to waste time even looking at the queen side? Maybe he focuses on the other flank. advancing for now, but the bishop drops back. This one is anyone's game. Yes, the evaluation bar says winning for white, but Magnus, he's saved a far worse position. This feels like the best he's had in a while.
But it is even material if we just count the pawns. But white has two unopposed passed pawns in the center. And look at the eval bar. It's sky high. How do you actually stop these pawns? He brings the king out of the pin. The knight now is free to move. And he pushed e5. And down both of the pawns, they're rumbling down the board. One of them is going to become a queen.
For a chance in this match, Fabi has to finish this job. He is so close to a game win, which will put him in a great situation to make a comeback in set 2. And he blunders with the most natural looking check on h4.
Wow, now black can give a couple of checks from behind, and the white e-pawn was actually dropping. Wow, Magnus even gives a check with a pawn stronger, perhaps. He gives another check and white's pawns are collapsing. Fabiano, has he blown the win?
Oh my gosh. Fabi with the knight moves. It's just all gone wrong, and now Magnus grabs the pawn on e5. White's king can take it, but black's rook takes the knight. Instead, he's threatening to queen. Magnus comes back with the bishop, defending the d8 square.
And for Fabiano, he needs to be careful not to lose this game at this stage. If somehow he drops that d pawn, that would be a disaster. And Magnus, he's pressing for some winning chances of his own. He's pushing his pawns up the board.
This is so reminiscent of their game 1. Fabi with the white pieces up a queen, lost in the end with the black pieces. But this one as well, he was winning throughout, and now it's him who's fighting for a draw.
Now white is fighting for his life, but white does have a threat. White is threatening a rook check on b5 and then to slide the rook across the d5 to block the black rook. Magnus's king dodges. Fabiano living on the edge here. And okay, black sacrifices a rook for the pawn. Can white's rook stop the black pawns? This should now be a draw, I think, but
barely, because
Magnus is playing for it.
Yeah, Magnus is playing for a win, but white has a check at some moment, so it looks like the black pawns are unstoppable. You push the h1 off the board, but he gives that check right now. So the black king, it can't go to h2. It's shielded by its own pawn, but the pin along the second rank. And if you go king h1, rook check, and promote, the white king is just in time to scoop up that final black pawn.
It looks like it will be the case, but Magnus makes Fabi sweat. He doesn't go for the direct draw line, as Robert was pointing out, pushes the pawn. But now, white's king is in time to pick up the last remaining pawn. And a king versus king, what a fight. Fabi can't believe it. Both players with a smile on their face. That was an up and down battle, and Magnus survives against Fabi. The match stays level.
Wow, their heart rates must be sky high right now. Fabiano feeling frustrated, disappointed. For most of the game, he was dictating things. We saw a bit of a raised eyebrow from him there. Magnus, he might not be showing it, but he is relieved.
And there was a smile, but it's like that meme with the guy in the corner, and he's